a lot of people will say to the teenagers that I feel like we have a lot of ministries and stuff for teenagers, and we tell them, you are the future of the church. Someone said, I don't know who it was, but someone said to me that the young adults are the now of the church, which I'm like, that's pretty cool. But that also means we should probably step up our game and grow in our faith and get connected in community.
I'm sure you guys weren't thinking about like the church as a whole when you wanted to start this ministry. You were thinking about the need that you had.
I've had classmates from my school who aren't even Catholic come in and start coming to church with us and saying like, hey, I really like this. I like what you're doing here. And so we're bringing people into the faith and sending them out too, if that makes any sense.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome back here, Faithful and Family. And we got another interview here. Our friend Faustina's come to kind of talk about her faith journey and then what she's doing today in her life. So hopefully it's going to be a good conversation. How's it going, Faustina?
Good. How are you, Joe?
Good. Great. So, I mean, Faustina, where are you from originally?
So I was born in Boston and I live in Plymouth now. I've lived in Plymouth for 22 years now.
Cool. So kind of the outskirts of the diocese.
Yeah, so I'm actually technically in the Archdiocese of Boston, but I live really close to Cape Cod, which is considered part of Fall River Diocese.
Yeah,
so.
And your home parish is Corpus Christi, right?
Yes.
No, yeah.
Well, kind of, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, so.
It became my home parish.
Right, so we've adopted you into the Fall River Diocese.
I am an adoptee.
That's good. All right. So, I mean, tell a little bit about yourself. Like, what do you do? Like, what season of life are you in? And
so right now I am a senior in college. I'm studying nursing. I work as a CNA, and when I'm not CNAing or in nursing school, I run a young adult ministry at my parish.
And that's WAVE, right?
That is WAVE.
Is that an acronym for something?
Worshiping Adults Venturing to Eternity.
Yeah, that's pretty based. All right.
I did not come up with that. I'm not
no.
that creative, but one of my young adults came up with that.
Oh, nice.
We were like, we got to do it ocean themed because it's Cape Cod. So
yeah.
That's how it happened.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And it's pretty good branding, WAVE. So cool. So, I mean, cradle Catholic, right?
Yes.
You always grew up in the Catholic faith. So tell me a little bit about growing up, like what role faith played in your house and growing up. And
so my mom is a convert. She had like a very profound experience. She was in a car accident and she kind of had this like major conversion after a car accident. She is disabled now. So when she was kind of at home and resting, she was given a book on Medjugorje actually, and she read it and she was like, Mary praying the rosary, I can do this. And then she somehow found the Catholic Church. My dad was a cradle Catholic, so they met each other actually through a young adult prayer group that my mom started, and they met, got married, had my sister and I, and faith has been just a really, really important aspect of our lives for my entire life. So we always would go to Mass on Sunday and all that, and I would say the kind of the foundational thing besides the going to the Mass and everything was the rosary. Like, we're centered around Mary, and it's really, really special for us. And Mary led us to Corpus Christi. We were going to St. Mary's in Plymouth, and then whatever year the Jubilee of Mercy was, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but that year, Corpus Christi, my parish now, had the Holy Doors. So we went there and they had a talk series on Divine Mercy, and we stayed for it, and we were like, they have perpetual adoration here and just some awesome priests, and we just really felt welcome and part of a community there. So after that, my family was like, we want to join that parish kind of, but Faustina needs to get confirmed. I was probably like 14, and they're like, if she can like be snuck into their confirmation program, we're going to join the parish. And so we joined the parish after that because they said, absolutely. And ever since then, I have been at Corpus Christi, and it's just been really great. They have so many ministries there, and I started out as a teenager going to their youth group, and then COVID happened, and that kind of stopped. But now that we're kind of out of COVID times, we've been starting more ministries within the parish.
Yeah. So like growing up, were there like youth group for you guys and those sorts of things?
Yes, absolutely. So I kind of bounced around with youth groups. As I said, I was going to St. Mary's in Plymouth. Some of my friends from Plymouth were also going to a youth group in Kingston. So I met a lot of young people there. And then I started going to Corpus Christi like within that time frame.
Yeah.
And I met these other young people at my parish that also had a youth group. So I kind of bounced between the two of them. And yeah, I mean, I ended up kind of transferring over to Corpus Christi. I spent a lot of time in the Archdiocese of Boston and all that, and I still am very close with those people and all that. But Corpus Christi is just my home. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. I mean, when you find a community that you are excited to be a part of, I mean, it's always sad to like, move parishes or, to feel like you're not a part of a parish, which I think a lot of people are, if they're not, really involved. But I mean, a parish is just a community of people that like are like-minded and are on fire in the same way that you are, or looking for the things that you're looking for. So I think it's always great when people find that home, that spiritual home, and it could be for a season too. Like you never know. I mean, maybe St. Mary's does something, and you guys are like, we'll go back to St. Mary's.
I go and visit sometimes, every once in a while.
Yeah. Oh, there is something to be said about like your home parish, like where you like maybe had your first sacraments and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Cool. And so kind of like you said, you're a senior in college now, so you've kind of experienced some of the young adult life, and what kind of role in these like maybe past 4 years of college, or 3 or 4 years of college, has like faith played in like maybe some of your decisions or stuff like that?
Well, I would say that the beginning of college for me, I wasn't really focused as much on my faith. Faith has always been something in my life. I obviously went to church every Sunday and all that, but I would say the first like 2 years of college for me, I was kind of just like in almost like a stagnant phase in my faith, where I wasn't really growing at all. And I don't know, it was just
figuring it out.
I was just figuring out my life. And then it was basically, this is going to go into the story of how Wave started, but it was kind of like COVID times when we were watching Mass online and everything, that I was kind of like, man, like I'm actually missing the church. And I would just kind of like think at home when I couldn't go anywhere, like, man, like what can I do that like would be meaningful like in the church? And that got me thinking, like, with COVID shutting down, like all of these ministries and stuff, I was like, we need to have like a young adult ministry, because I had just graduated high school and all that. And so one day I was hanging out with some of my Catholic friends from Corpus Christi, and I just casually said, like, it'd be kind of cool if we started a young adult group at our parish, like something official, and something that maybe we could invite more people into and make more friends. And all of my friends were like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, let's do that. And it was like in the middle of wintertime. Like we were like, yeah, we're going to do it. And then nothing happened for like several months. And then one of my friends, who happens to be one of my co-leads now, he would come up to me like maybe every other month and be like, Faustina, we need to start this young adult group. And I would always make excuses. I'd be like, no, we're not doing this right now. And they were pretty lame excuses too. It was like, I'm just too busy with like whatever school I had going on, or I don't even know, but they were really lame excuses. And then finally, I would say it was the end of summer. I was just about to start nursing school. And so I was kind of overwhelmed. I had a lot going on in my life. It was really weird timing. I had like just gotten out of a relationship, and it was like this night my friend comes up to me for like the very last time. It was like, Faustina, and he was like kind of like aggressive about it. He's like, I want to start this young adult group. And I was like, I just don't have the time. I'm starting nursing school. I'm just went through a breakup. I'm like, I am just emotionally not there. And he was like, well, guess what? I just talked to Father Jack, our parish priest, and he's like, I set up a meeting with him. Be there or be square. And I was like, oh, okay. So that kind of just like, I don't know, gave me FOMO. Yeah. I mean, again, kind of lame, but it gave me FOMO. And so I went to the meeting, and I don't know, Father Jack was just like, okay, here you go. You're going to start it. And he was all for it. And Father Jack is the director of vocations for Fall River Diocese. So, I mean, it all fell into place. It was wonderful. So young adults is like his big thing. Yeah. So grateful that he helped us out to start it. And so, yeah, that's how WAVE started. I mean, I had a lot of FOMO, had a lot of lame excuses, but then I kind of came to the realization that, like, oh, hey, I mean, I've been a little stagnant in my faith up until this point. And if I'm going to lead a ministry, I need to be in a better relationship with God. Yeah. So that's kind of the spark that kind of made me like actually. Yeah. It's always interesting where like you start to get involved in like, you know, a church ministry, and then at some point you're like, okay, I guess I have to like I think sometimes people kind of start where they're like, oh, I'm just like faking it till I make it, you know? But then there does come a point where you're like, okay, well, like I actually have people who I'm serving, and like, you know, you also become, you know, more spiritually aware maybe of like your own deficiencies. And so you're like, okay, I guess it's time for me to like take it seriously and kind of practice when I'm preaching, you know. It's a little bit different, but like when I'm, you know, teaching CCD especially, I think about that a lot, you know, like I'm coming and I'm just, you know, I'm not just donating my time. Like I'm trying to, you know, make a difference, and I'm trying to teach them something about the faith. And so if I'm not on my A game, then like, you know, the fruit of, you know, that is not going to be the best fruit, right? Like you want to give out the best fruit, not like the low tier fruit that they throw out at the stores. And it's also great when you have like a priest who's like, or a pastor who's on board and like supportive. That's like so huge. And yeah, him, you know, being the vocations director, he definitely has those strings to pull and can get things done and help you guys out. So that's great. Yeah. So great. I mean, that's a good segue, I guess, into WAVE. And like, so like from that conversation, that first conversation with Father Jack and your friend, that was Will, right? No, Will didn't actually come in until May of last year. Okay. But yeah, I have two other co-leads besides Will. Like I'll just go and meet. I don't know. Like I met you guys at the Newman Center. I'm kind of the outreach person. And I also coordinate events. Will coordinates events, and Aaron is kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but he's kind of like the scheduler. Like, okay, we're gonna do this and this and this. And then my friend Edgar, who's one of the other co-leads, he is our cameraman, our media person. Yeah. So I mean, we make a good team. Yeah. Yes, it takes a village.
It does. It does. Yeah. And I mean, just the more people that you add that to have those strengths. I mean, yeah, that's awesome. It's good you guys recognize that, because I feel like sometimes people just come together with like, oh, I want to make this happen, but like they don't have no sense of like, well, what am I going to actually put into it? Like, absolutely. And when can you, like, yeah, maybe you have a better vision for the cameraman, or for what the camera angle should be, but like that's like his thing, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's cool. So from those first conversations, kind of like what has WAVE turned into, and like what do you guys, maybe, I don't know if you have a mission statement or.
We do, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but basically the idea with WAVE was community. We felt like that was lacking. especially with the young adults at our parish. Like, I would go to church and be like, there's so many young adults here, but I don't know any of them. And I mean, I knew some of them, but
Right.
I didn't know many of them. And we just wanted to grow more in our faith together. You see all of these ministries for like the teenagers, and all of the like the elderly. So it's like where's that like middle ground where it's like for the young adults?
Right.
And we didn't have that at our parish. So I was like, we should probably have something for the young people. And something that has always stuck with me at some point at I want to say it was probably like at a Steubenville conference. No, maybe it was at Seek. I don't know. It was one of these youthful conferences that I went to. A lot of people will say to the teenagers that I feel like we have a lot of ministries and stuff for teenagers, and we tell them, you are the future of the church.
Yeah.
Someone said, I don't know who it was, but someone said to me at one point at some conference that the young adults are the now of the church, which I'm like, that's pretty cool. But that also means we should probably step up our game and grow in our faith and get connected in community. So we started it with the idea of we should be doing faith-related things together, but also promote that community. So we do have a mission statement, but I don't remember. But it's something along those lines.
That basically summarizes the mission statement. Yeah. No, that's so true. I mean, that's actually a really good quote. Like, the young adults in their 20s and like early 30s, like they are the church now. They're making changes. They're making decisions maybe on like pastoral councils or, leading ministries that are going to affect the future of the church. And wow, that is pretty powerful. Yeah. So what are some of the things that like Wave does to kind of live out that mission of like, getting these young adults together?
So, I mean, I had the bright idea because my mom had started a rosary group. I said, well, let's start with the rosary. So every Wednesday we all meet in our church and we pray the rosary together. So we kind of have our prayer aspect of the night, and then we'll move to something else, and we'll move to our parish hall and either have a discussion or a social night, something to promote that community, but also to kind of start those faith-based discussions.
Right.
I kind of started out, we would just like do Lectio Divina together or watch like a Father Mike Schmitz talk, and it grew from there. So now, I mean, we've grown to the point of we used to do larger group discussions. Now we have enough people that we can do small group discussions, and getting to know these young adults more, it's you connect with them more. And I've just seen a lot of people grow from it. Now we're doing events outside of our Wednesday nights, and we might go to like a movie or something together, and maybe game nights, whatever. But I have definitely seen my young adults grow through this and seen people come in. We go to daily mass sometimes. It's like, I'll just shoot out on our little group text that we have, like, hey, I'm going to go to adoration tonight or going to confession. And so many people come to it, and it's so beautiful to see.
Yeah. Oh, that is great. Wow. So it sounds like it's been pretty fruitful. And if you're seeing, the changes in the young adults, I guess that's proof of the fruit. Wow. Yeah, it's great that that's actually kind of like what you guys set out to do, and you're seeing the changes, and you're making a space for those people too. Do you guys yeah, so why do you think it what do you think it's helping, I guess maybe like in a broader sense, the church? Like, what do you think kind of the fruit of your fruit will be? You know what I mean?
Okay, that's a deep question. Well, I feel like Wave is kind of inviting people in, and people are going out and telling people like, hey, I just had this great experience at church. Not to get too deep into it, but I've had classmates from my school who aren't even Catholic come in and start coming to church with us and saying like, hey, I really like this. I like what you're doing here. And so we're bringing people into the faith and sending them out too, if that makes any sense. Just the other day, I just found out one of the people going to Wave who hasn't been to confession in some time is going to confession. So there are beautiful things happening. And all of these people that I'm talking about, it was through different people who have attended Wave and gone out and said, hey, you should come experience this. And it's touching to hear that people are enjoying it so much and getting something out of this ministry that we started, to the point of they're inviting people, and it's just growing from there. And these people are starting to grow just like the people that kind of started Wave off. Yeah.
Damn. It's like what the church is supposed to do, right? It's like you're supposed to preach, and then, from that preach and that discipleship and the fellowship, people then have the confidence to go out and invite other people. That's just awesome. But like, it's true. I mean, the ministries, and I'm sure you guys weren't thinking about like the church as a whole when you wanted to start this ministry. You were thinking about the need that you had. But I mean, I think all ministries serve the purpose of serving the church and like its mission to evangelize and grow and serve others. So that's great. Can you speak at all to like maybe some of like the individualistic aspects of Wave? Because like, it's always a lot of big groups, and like now you guys have the small groups because you recognize the importance of like kind of maybe one-on-one, and like maybe what has it been like to kind of get to know people individually?
Well, I am very much a people person. I love getting to know all of the young adults that come in, especially if there's like a new face there. I always make a point to be like, all right, gonna go talk to this person. But as they start coming in, like I'll go and meet a person, make sure that they feel welcome, especially if they're new, and you can kind of tell if they're like, I don't know if I want to come back to this. So I go and I meet them. Me and my co-lead we're kind of the people. And so he kind of focuses on the men, and he'll go and kind of get to know them, know their interests. I have, for example, a young adult who is a firefighter, and one night we were doing pumpkin carving just for the fun of it, and he said, oh, you know what, I'm gonna get my truck, and he pulled around the back of the church because we were doing it outside, and he's like, we'll put the pumpkins in my truck and we'll drive to the front to our other cars. And so I hopped in his passenger seat, and I was just, my dad's a firefighter, so I was like, oh, he'll tell me about like your job and all that. He's also a corrections officer. So we were chatting, and he was so proud of his truck. Like on like the ceiling of his truck, he had like all of these different patches and stuff for like different police departments, fire departments. And he was so proud of it. And so that kind of got a conversation started, like, oh, hey, these are things that we have connected on a personal level. And so this is a surprise for him, but I got a patch for my dad's fire department. I'm going to give it to him. So I've seen him really grow in this ministry. And he comes, he brings his rosary pamphlet, and it's beautiful. And then, so my co-lead Will kind of got to know the men more. I've gotten to know the men more through Will, and vice versa. I have another young adult female that just recently joined our group a couple months back, and she's Coast Guard. And so it happened to be a night that it was all men at Wave, and I was not there, that she showed up. But the men there said, no, you have to come back and meet Faustina. And I'm so glad that she came back, and I got to meet her. And just chatting with her, it seemed like she was really longing for a female community among Catholics. And so I got to know her a little bit more, and she was just kind of took it on herself to form a female group for the Wave ladies. So nice. As you get to know their interests a little bit more, it helps. It helps to form that community, and now, like, I'll just get text messages from them like, hey, I just did this, blah, 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 blah. And they tell me about their day, and I love to hear it. And just seeing the interactions and them come out of their shell a little bit more, and also come out of their shell too in terms of their faith.
Right.
It's like a beautiful combination.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is great. Like when you get to, because that's what it really is. It's like, I think the personal interactions, you know, that's where that community is built, you know, like it's one thing to kind of just like speak to a group of people like, oh yeah, this is our faith, this is what we should do. But like, yeah, it's really like in the laughter and the conversations, and like whenever here at Newman House we have like events, it's always like 30 different conversations going on. It's so loud in here. And like sometimes I'm like, man, it's like maybe we're not really making any progress because it's just too loud. But then like, you know, then people come back and we make new friends, and people are talking about other events that are going on. Excuse me. So it's really like, yeah, in those like one-on-one moments that like the fellowship is kind of brewed.
Absolutely.
What other things too, like you spoke about the rosary and adoration, like can you speak to kind of like the importance of like the sacramental side of, you know, these types of groups and in your communities?
Absolutely. So what I love about my parish, Corpus Christi, is we are centered around the Eucharist. We have a perpetual adoration chapel. And so that really draws people in. And it's kind of like through that adoration chapel that the sacraments are kind of like channeled out in a way. Every week at Wave, we have confessions at the same time, and you go to the adoration chapel to be in line for confession. So I know a lot of young adults that will come and be like, I can't come for the rosary tonight, but I got to go hit the box. And so I love it so much. So I'm just so grateful that we have confession during Wave so that like my young adults can go. And then just like through our Wave women's group and we're starting a men's group for the men at Wave. We're starting to like go to daily mass together, and even just text people and be like, hey, we're going to go to this Sunday mass. Do you want to come? And then we can go out for coffee after. Yeah. So that's kind of how we invite them into the sacraments. Yeah. And then another thing is at Wave, and I'm so grateful for this, our parish priest will always come. Our parochial vicar, who usually hears confessions on Wednesday nights, after he hears confessions, he'll come to Wave. And I've had a couple young adults who are like, hey, I couldn't make it over to confession, but will you hear my confession? And so he's always like, absolutely. So it's just so cool to have all of these moving parts that kind of channel them out to the sacraments, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
And I think like in any faith community, you want access to the sacraments. And I think there's a lot of disservice in parishes or communities where like you're like, oh, when's confession? Like, oh, it's only during Lent. Like, that's kind of weird. But like to know there's a time and a place to, you know, take part of these sacraments, it's just like such a blessing. And anybody I speak to that have especially a perpetual adoration chapel, but any type of like regularly scheduled adoration where there's people meeting in droves, the parish is always like flourishing. And so like it's no surprise that Corpus Christi like has a perpetual adoration chapel, and you can see all these fruits from all the ministries, like you said, coming out of that that sacrament. Speak about kind of how this young adult group has kind of led you to other young adult groups, because that's how we've met, right? Like the Newman House and Wave, and kind of like what it's been like experiencing that.
So my parish priest, Father Jack, when we started Wave, he came up to me and he's like, I want you to go to Seek, and I want you to bring your young adults. And I was like, what the heck is Seek? And so I found out it's a National Catholic Conference for Young Adults. And so we went to this, and I kind of got like just thrown into this leadership role. I was a baby waveling, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I came back and I was like, whoa, I saw so many Catholic young adults practicing their faith. And I'm like, I want to meet more Catholic people that are around my age. So I ended up going to my parochial vicar at the time was Father John Garabedian. And I had a chat with him after Seek, and we kind of went over the pros and cons of the trip because we kind of just winged it. And he gave me the recommendation to expand my horizons and go meet some Catholic young adults in my diocese. And I was like, I didn't even know that like there were other young adult ministries within my diocese. Like that had never crossed my mind for some reason. And he invited me on the Charis retreat that I met you guys on. And so I went to that and met you wonderful people. And so I started going to the Newman Center. That was kind of like my first expansion, I guess. And through that, I got to meet other young adults who had young adult ministries within the diocese. And one day I was visiting Father John at his new parish in Freetown, and he just casually said, he's like, Faustina, I feel like you're just like kind of connecting all of these young adult ministries within our diocese. And I was like, all right, I like that job. I can do that. So since then, I have tried to make it around to every young adult group within the diocese and make connections with the young people there. And I would say it's a success because we've had so many young adults come to our bigger wave events, like we've had bonfires in the summer and dances in the winter and all that. And just to see that there are other young people who are on fire with their faith within our diocese is really inspiring. And it kind of gave me hope to like, okay, hey, I'm not the only one just trying to run this ministry, and there's other people out there that want to grow in their faith in their community as well. And I feel like by combining forces, I guess, it's just made us all the stronger.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's always, I think one thing you said about kind of like the inspiring aspect of it, like you see other Catholics living out their faith, maybe in a way that you didn't even know was possible, you know, and just having that, that example, I think is huge. I know like in any time, and even now, like when I see different, and I'm in different groups and I see different people like in roles of leadership or just living out their faith, you know, courageously, I'm always like inspired to be like, oh man, maybe I should be doing more, you know. And sometimes even people who are younger than me, which is kind of funny, you know, I tend to be the oldest in the group, but you know, I've had plenty of friends who I've like, man, this guy's going to adoration every week. Like I need to be going to adoration every week. And it just like, you know, pushes you to, you know, live your faith a little bit harder and ask yourself, like, are you truly living out totally what God's calling you to live out? And
Absolutely.
So it's always a great blessing to have that example of fellowship or examples of how to live your faith in fellowship. Great. Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate you, you know, speaking about Wave and kind of like communities and how it's so important. I think if anything on this podcast we talk the most about, it is community, right? And it's great to see that people are plugging into community and finding community and growing in their faith because of community. If anybody who's listening is on Cape, you know, when, because I know you mentioned it, but like when are these Wave meetings, and then like where should they go if they're looking for like more information?
Okay. So we have an Instagram, Corpus Christi _Wave, I believe. And you can always look us up in the Corpus Christi Bulletin. We meet every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We start in the church. If we're not in the church and you come late, that's okay. You can meet us in the parish hall. But every Wednesday we meet and we pray, and then we have our fellowship together.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, you guys definitely follow it. I might make it down there one day just to check it out.
I hope you do.
I should. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
As we always do, we're going to end in prayer, and then the final question. So I guess we can just pray here for a minute. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Lord, we just thank you for this opportunity again to speak about you, about your church, about your grace and your love for us. Thank you for the gift of Faustina and her ministry and the impact she's making here in the diocese with her young adult group and the way she's connecting the young adult groups. Ask that you continue to bless her and all that she endeavors and all that she's going through, that she may be strengthened to live her faith courageously for you and for your glory. And we ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So, final question is: do you frog? Fully rely on God?
Okay, so I would say yes. I had to I remember when Danny sent out the little flyer, like, okay, this is what we're gonna go over when I'm on the podcast. I was like, do I frog? I'm like, what does that mean? And he thankfully wrote it out. I was like, that's so cool. I really like that acronym. But yes, absolutely. I know no other way.
Awesome. That's good to hear. It's always a growing experience, and it's always seasonal, it feels like. But I think that, going through life fully relying on God is the way to go. That's why we preach it, I guess. And because Dan likes frogs. So he had to make it work.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Faustina. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.